City rail fans. You've tuned in to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, the podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of locomotives, rolling stock, and the rich history and current state of railroading. I'll be one of your hosts. My name's Brad Williamson, and our other host is my good friend Patrick Moore. And whether you're a seasoned model railroader, a history buff, or just someone who loves the sound of a passing train, you're in the right place. We're proudly affiliated with the Altoona N-Scale Facebook group, but don't let the name fool you. We cover all scales from Z to G and everything in between. We'll be exploring the vibrant railroading scene of western and central Pennsylvania, from the mighty steel giants of the past to the intricate layouts of today. Expect in-depth discussions, interviews with experts, and plenty of stories from the rails. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and enjoy the Roundhouse Report, a podcast of Iron City, by Iron City, and for Iron City. Hello, Iron City rail fans and modelers, and welcome to another episode of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. We're so happy that you could join us for another episode, and as a special token of our appreciation, we also want to include a big thank you for helping us to reach 1,000 downloads. We crossed that, as this is being recorded, we crossed that big milestone just this week. I believe it was just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, or was it?
That's
today,
right.
Pat?
That's yesterday. Right. Yesterday, 1,000 downloads. Man, I can't.
So we're recording this on July the 24th, and yeah, yesterday.
I hope in a couple of years we chuckle when we say, "Oh, we had 1,000, now we're at 10,000." You know what I mean?
Kind of like when we had a good chuckle about the first time you did your showcase, and we had 15 members at that time.
That's right, and I had 50% turnout.
Yeah, you did, which is probably the highest percentage turnout we've ever had.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, tonight is episode 7, and you know those TV shows and movies like The Accountant and The Librarian?
Oh, yeah.
Well, our show tonight is The Historian, because if you want to introduce him, Brad, for our co-host tonight.
Yeah, we actually have a co-host with us tonight. This is the first time we've really ever done a co-host, per se. We've had special guests, we've had yard masters, but tonight we have a co-host, a third co-host of the show, in addition to Pat and myself, the guy who we have come to rely upon as the Iron City historian. He's got just a treasure trove of knowledge about especially Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh railroads, going pretty far back, really. So, if you need to know anything about any of the many, many railroads, and at one time, I mean, there's still a lot of them there now, but at one time, the number of railroads in the greater Pittsburgh area was just something unbelievable compared to what we have today. So Richard knows quite a bit about a lot of those. So we wanted to have him included tonight because we're going to go into some of that, the history and some other stuff that we'll get to when the time comes. But welcome, Richard. We're glad to have you here tonight with us.
Hello. Thank you, and thank you for having me.
So, Richard, I think people need to know some things that they can really help them when they're on our Iron City page, and that is, if you ever have a question about if something is, like if you're trying to do the prototype or if you're trying to make it look right. I have asked Richard so many times, "Hey, Richard, does this look right? Hey, Richard, is this what they did in the mill? Hey, Richard, did Pittsburgh and West Virginia actually ever go down this track with the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie?" Richard's your man. He can tell you all about that. Make sure you're trying to be accurate. Some of us are trying to be semi-accurate. We don't want to be what we used to call those guys. We're not rivet counters, but you don't want to be totally off on your layout. And I think Richard provides that for anybody that needs that type of information. He's the guy.
He also brings a perspective of someone who is a railroader. his daytime job when he's not podcasting with us. He's an electrician at the Conway Engine House,
Right.
just north of Pittsburgh on the big yard at Conway. Also has an engine house, and he services the electrical components of Norfolk Southern locomotives there. So he has kind of a unique perspective in that he is a modeler, a rail fan, and a railroad employee all in one.
Correct. Yeah. It railroading has been, part of my life since my childhood. So not only am I a railroad employee, but growing up, like in the Boy Scouts, my scoutmasters were conductors and brakemen on the railroad. My neighbors worked on the railroad. So, I kind of have knowledge and, back to my childhood on, this is how Penn Central did things. This is how Conrail did things, so on and so forth.
Okay,
And
guys, are
that's
we
why
ready?
that's why he's the Iron City historian.
Okay, guys, are we ready to hit the report?
I think we are ready. Yes. Do you want
Okay,
to go first, or do you want me to?
go ahead, Brad, if you got one ready to go.
Well, I think we might be coming back to this later, but to me, the 600-pound gorilla that we should report on right now is this rumored, and it is, I believe, just rumor this time. I've seen news reports that both Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, supposedly somebody from within those companies has confirmed that they are in advanced merger talks, but I have not seen anything official from either of the companies yet. But if that is another big merger that's on the horizon, that's definitely going to impact the railroad industry. It's going to impact rail fanning, and it's probably going to impact our modeling as well. We may be seeing things here in Pennsylvania turn from black to armor yellow at some point if this actually does happen. So
Yeah,
Richard,
I've seen that reported on our page, but I've also seen it on several other pages. People are there was a big merger not that long ago between Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific. So it seems like whenever one starts, it seems like it touches off another round of them. So we don't know yet if it's actually going to happen, but wouldn't be shocked if another round of mergers does come out of this.
and Richard, I think we talked before the show started. We were just joking around. Could the Southern Pacific come back? And you kind of got to laugh on that. What's your idea of the history behind naming, and what do you think something like that would look like?
quite honestly, if there was a merger, it could be something along the lines of, Burlington Northern and Santa Fe, where you end up seeing something like UPNS, or like what Brad just mentioned with Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific, where they did the CPK KCS. That's if it's a merger. If Union Pacific outright buys Norfolk Southern, then it may just, the NS name may actually just go away and the whole system becomes Union Pacific. So we kind of have to would see what actually is going to take place. Now, I could tell you from a employee standpoint, we did receive an email at work that said the company was neither confirming or denying. So they're not publicly releasing anything at this point if the merger talks really are happening or not. So some of the stuff that's been posted, I don't know like who officially is saying, but according to where I'm working, it hasn't been confirmed. Also, another thing that we'd have to look at too is even if UP and Norfolk Southern decides that, hey, yeah, we do want to link up, make a true transcontinental, the STB would have to approve that merger. You can go back in history and look at when Southern Pacific and Santa Fe wanted to merge, that back then it was the ICC, the STB hadn't been created yet, but they said no. So the STB, Surface Transportation Board, they still have the right to say, no, this isn't going to be in the benefit of the public. Another thing to look at is I wouldn't be surprised if word doesn't come out soon that CSX and BNSF are in merger talks as well, because you know what? If two link up, then the other two are going to say, well, we don't want left out of the coast to coast ball game either.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rich.
that'll put severe pressure for another. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier when I said one merger often begats another. Because if you think about, just take it from the BNSF perspective, and this is all hypothetical at this point, but say Union Pacific does buy out Norfolk Southern and everything goes armor yellow. We got Union Pacific, true transcontinental coast to coast railroad. All the traffic that BNSF interchanges with Norfolk Southern, I highly doubt they're going to want to do that to hand off that. Much of it happens at Chicago. They're not going to want to hand that off to their main competitor to make it to the East Coast ports or wherever it's gone. They're going to want to link up with CSX in some sort of merger so they have their own route to the east. Don't you think, Richard?
Yeah, and you bring up another good point is who actually has the better East Coast ports? Because like Los Angeles is a very big port, and I'm pretty sure, don't not 100%, but I'm pretty sure our West Coast fans could probably confirm. But I think BNSF and UP both have access to the ports in Los Angeles. But when it comes to the East Coast, who actually has the better ports on the East Coast? If we align, if NS aligns with UP, and you have a direct New Jersey to Los Angeles for intermodal traffic across the continent, does BNSF, them aligning with CSX, give them a port, or does it put them at a disadvantage because they're also running intermodal traffic to New Jersey, the New Jersey intermodal port? So that kind of brings up a good question on the other, like BNSF, like you mentioned, they could actually jump in and say, no, we are against this merger because we're going to lose if we merge, and if we merge with CSX, they don't have. This is all speculation at this point, but there's some different angles to look at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
guys. So
I was kind of surprised because it seemed for years that NS and BNSF were kind of cozying up to each other, not necessarily merging, but had a lot of run through traffic and stuff like that. So I was, I was expecting if there was another round of mergers, it would be those two. But then all of a sudden, we hear that Union Pacific might be the dancing partner, which, I mean, it was just me speculating, which is what we're doing now. So we should
right.
preface this by letting everybody know we could be completely wrong, but
Right,
it
Yeah.
is
right,
out
yeah,
there
yeah,
now, and it's worth talking about, I think.
yeah, yeah. We don't know at this point what the future actually holds. You know, 2 months down the road, UP and NS could say, yeah, we can't get the numbers to work and things just aren't going to work out. Or they might get hints from the STB that the STB is not going to be in favor of it, and they just might back away. So yeah, everything's speculative at this point.
Richard, it could be Cotto just saying we can't make these new locomotives without the better paint scheme. You just never know. Hey guys,
Yeah.
let's keep going with this with the virtual weekend that we're having. Maybe some folks don't understand what a virtual weekend is for the Iron City, but in the summer months, we know a lot of guys are not model railroading, and maybe they're out doing other things. But we try to get everybody's to spark a little interest, maybe go out to the layout just a little bit. And what we do is videos and pictures of everything NS and everything heritage that goes with NS. And my question to Brad and Richard tonight, as we're doing this, everybody probably have N&W and everything like that. What are one of the railroads that you think kind of misses out on the heritage that was a little bit bigger, but you don't really hear people talking about it?
For me, I think some of the ones that actually miss out that were in this area are like the nickel plate. I don't know if people realize the nickel plate, the Wabash, and the Pittsburgh and West Virginia, all became part of the Norfolk and Western in 1964. So there's three of them right there that it seems like. Now, yeah, NS does have heritage units. The only one they don't have is the P and the WV. But you look on the other side of the N and W also is the Virginian. How many people actually realize that the Virginian is part of NS heritage? So that's kind of another one you can throw into the pie. And then you have everything on the Conrail side, that became part of NS, the 99 merger, Conrail, Erie Lackawanna, Reading,
My favorite, the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
Lehigh and Hudson River. You have all of those as well. Plus Penn Central, because Penn Central and New York Central, or Pennsylvania and New York Central merged to create Penn Central. So there's another end of the heritage also that can all funnel into, NS heritage.
Brad, what do you think about virtual weekend and some of the old heritage units? Which ones do you like to see?
Well, I enjoy I have two favorites. Since I'm a PRR guy, obviously the Pensy Heritage Unit, the 8102 is one of my favorites. But recently I started seeing on the railfan cams, the virtual railfan cams, that Delaware and Hudson unit,
Yeah.
which is just really sharp. So those are the ones that I probably enjoy seeing the most. But I like all of them though. I think it's a really cool thing that the railroads are willing to do that to honor their heritage. I do like the NS concept of it, the Norfolk Southern concept of actually doing the whole locomotive in the paint scheme of the railroad whose heritage you're honoring. I'm not as fond. I don't get me wrong. I like the CSX one, but I'm not as fond as it looks like kind of a mixture of two. They have
Right.
their own paint job on the cabs usually, and then the rear of it has the heritage. But I would agree with Richard on Penn Central. I think that's probably one of the most overlooked of the heritage ones because it had New York Central, the two titans, and for most of the history of railroading, those were the big two. Came before it, and then Conrail, which is gaining a lot of notoriety now, came after it, and a lot of times that Penn Central era gets overlooked, in my opinion.
Would you guys say you see, like when we go to the shows and everything, much Wabash or much nickel plate being modeled? I just don't recall seeing that much. Now we're East Coast guys, right? I don't know, how much in Pennsylvania's got so many to model within right here. But I've traveled a little bit of Columbus and some other places. I just don't see that much in scale modeling of Wabash and nickel plate. What do you guys think?
Yeah, to me that kind of is surprising, especially with the nickel plate, because nickel plate went to Buffalo. Nickel plate basically, I don't remember what year, but they actually merged or purchased the original Wheeling and Lake Erie. So when the P&WV was still in existence prior to 1964, the P&WV was actually interchanging with the nickel plate in Brewster, Ohio, the main yard. So it's kind of surprising that we don't see more nickel plate in this area. Now, Wabash is kind of more like Michigan. I think they did go into Toledo. They were Indiana, Chicago, and that. But it's kind of surprising we don't see more nickel plate in this area.
I would agree with that. I'm trying to think. Of course, my memory's not as good as it once was, but I don't know. I don't know that I have ever seen an N-scale layout of either nickel plate or Wabash. Of course,
Yeah.
you've got one of the big, well-known layouts, Tony Custer's nickel plate in HO, and then of course his equally famous Allegheny Midland started off with a prototype freelance version of the nickel plate paint scheme on his Midland Road engines. So
Yeah,
there
Allegheny
is
Midland.
the Allegheny Midland. There is that for the nickel plate, but yeah, I'm scanning back through the archives, the deep recesses of my brain where I don't usually try to go, but
Yeah.
I can't come up with an N scale layout from either one of those roads that I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So,
it's
so Richard's got one of the only Pittsburgh and West Virginia I've seen. Not too many people model that either. Richard got me so excited about that paint scheme and that line that I actually merged some of that. I went back in time a little bit on my layout because we have the flexibility, right, guys, to do what we want on our layouts. And so
right.
Especially when you're prototype freelancing, that gives
yeah.
you
Right.
a lot more flexibility to do
And so
stuff
I
like
just
that.
I kind of bumped that timeline about 5 years to get that Pittsburgh and West Virginia in there. But like Richard said,
I was
there's not
not
too much
informed
in
of
there.
this.
Oh yeah, I got a little bit. It's not much, but it's a little bit.
Yeah,
You know.
you didn't tell me you were doing this, though. This has taken me by surprise.
But and we talked about trying to be somewhat. It's funny when you're writing your own history for your freelance, and you're trying to bring a little bit of real history into it. And so I had to write it as as N&W was merging. They didn't sell off everything or paint everything, and the West Penn was able to purchase some of this and merge with them and kind of run them as a short line. So that's how I added that into there. But it's so funny when you're doing freelance and you're doing history and you have all these railroads in the 70s and 60s. You can get pretty creative with it and allow yourself to add and do different things and try to be a little bit historical with it or not.
I think that's what brings about my great affinity for short lines and regionals, because I can remember the days, in my early days of rail fanning with my grandfather in the early 70s. There were still, even after the Penn Central, well, especially after the Penn Central merger, now all of a sudden you get to see all this equipment from all over the Northeast that you had never seen before. And when the merger mania kicks off, all those fallen flags have disappeared. So, and we do get new. They're not class ones, but we do get new short lines and regionals. So I think that variety that we get from them is what makes me enjoy railroads like the Reading and Northern, the Buffalo and Pittsburgh, even the short line operators that we have in this area that Richard and I rail fan recently, not coincidentally. So, but yeah, we have. It's interesting to talk about mergers, but it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like it is. It is like every time we get a round of those, the variety of class ones and variety of class one paint schemes just seems to shrink and shrink and shrink. Again, like what you were talking about, if you think back even 50 years ago, there were so many more class ones than what we have today.
So
Yeah.
guys, let's turn our attention into a little bit more history. And we're going to talk a little bit. We have a big additional show coming up here in a couple of weeks for the Altoona N-Scale Weekend, and that's going to be September 20th and 21st in Altoona. Richard, I've known you've been to those for a long time. What kind of history do you remember of the Altoona N-Scale Weekend, and what are some things that you remember?
Trying to remember exactly how long I've been gone to the Altoona N-Scale Weekend, but we used to go to the Jaffa Center in downtown Altoona, which the biggest thing I remember about that was, man, it was a bear getting to that place. Turn right here, turn left here, turn right here. But it was just to see the manufacturers that actually would show up at that event. Microtrains is usually represented there. Scale trains, they were there when they first were coming out with their, was it the C-32s and the C-39s? So I actually got to see pre-production samples of those locomotives when that was practically like a brand new company. And then, just all the different vendors from around the area, around the country that actually show up at that show. And then you have, all the operating, the layouts, and then, people that just show up that want to sell off stuff. Plus, the neat thing is, years ago, and I don't remember when, it's probably at least 20 years ago, if not more, I, getting onto the internet and learning about the internet and finding these different forums that specialized in model railroading. And I became a member of this one forum that was pretty well known, the Railwire, and, got to be friends virtually with people on the Railwire, and then to actually meet them in person at the Altoona, N-Scale show. That was kind of neat too, because now, I'm running into, model railroaders from Maryland and New Jersey and Virginia. And these are people I talk to online, but, now I get to talk to them in person also. So the Altoona show I don't want to say it's like the N or the NMRA or, the N-Scale convention, but it's a must go to show for people in our area.
Brad, what do you remember about how far back you go with the N-Scale Weekend at Altoona?
Oh boy, it's at least 15 years, probably closer to. I'm not even I can't even remember exactly when that started. The first one I went to, I can't remember. Were they at the Jaffa Mosque first and then went to Bedford? Is that how that was, Richard?
No, no, they were down there in Bedford first, and then they moved to Jaffa. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've been to both. I just couldn't remember. The first one I would have been to then was at Bedford, and I don't, I don't remember the year. I'm going to guess, I don't know, '03, '04 maybe.
Yeah, probably somewhere around there. Yeah.
I remember it was a muddy parking lot a lot of times because you had to park it down there at Bedford. But yeah, I do, and I remember when they went then to the Jaffa Mosque. As I recall, the vendors were on one floor and then all the layouts were upstairs. Am I remembering that correctly? Or do I have that backwards? I know you had to go to the second floor for something. But yeah, it's always been a great show in my opinion.
So, Brad, Brad, do you remember the first year I went and you took me and I said, oh no, I didn't make
Oh
it to
yeah.
I didn't make it to all the vendors. And I said, okay, next year I got to have a strategy and make sure
Oh
I
yeah.
get to everything. Cause you're like, did you see that over there, Pat? You missed, that thing you were looking for was right over there. I was like, Brad, I didn't even make it over there.
Yeah.
I was on the other side of the convention hall.
Yeah, you're like a deer in headlights. I don't think there's any show you can go to where you see more N scale stuff. Like not maybe Springfield, but I don't think Springfield has a whole lot more N scale stuff than what the Altoona N scale. It's just Springfield's enormous because it's all scales, and that's one that has to be seen to be believed too. That Amherst show up in Springfield, but as far as just N scale, I don't think the Altoona N scale show has to take a back seat to anybody. I mean, it's all. I mean, you are like a deer in the headlights when when you first
Yeah.
go in there and think, where do I even start? Although our buddy Tom Catalano didn't seem to have any trouble figuring that out.
No, he did
We
not.
we see Tom at breakfast, and then we don't see him again until we go to dinner in the evening because he's
No,
off looking for Chessie stuff. But
or he'll slide in, you'll see him with the throttle. You're like, how did he get there? And how did your train get set up? And he runs his train, and the next thing you know, you don't see him again. You're like, how did that happen?
yeah, he's like a
You know,
ghost.
you guys bring up a good point. Also, is now the Altoona N-Scale show is all, or N-Scale Weekend, I guess it's officially called. Now that the Iron City N-Scale group is in existence, it's a great gathering place for us. And then, a lot of you guys set up the T-track layout and you get to run. And if anybody buys anything at the show, you can even test it out on the T-track layout. So it's a big plus for us now as members of this group.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was the
Rich.
other thing we wanted to bring up. We're initiating a special program now where we're going to charge for that.
Yeah, we're going to double our free cost to double free.
we're going to increase our fee to run on the layout by
Yeah.
15%. So
So, Brad, we did talk about we'll have a special show to go over a little bit more detail, but let me just run over some of the things that we do every year. So, Friday night, Todd Treaster always has his nice open house. And like I said, we'll talk about more of that later, but just for people to kind of, if you're thinking about coming, these are opportunities for you. So, Friday night, Todd Treaster will have an open house. You can come out and see his layout. And that's about an hour away, would you say, Brad, from
yeah,
Altoona?
it's about an hour. Yep.
And anybody that says, hey, you're with the Iron City, you get a VIP pass and you get right in. He'll show you around. And then Saturday night, Brad, is a new tradition. It's pizza and beer or, soda on the Station Inn porch because we buy out the Station Inn for the weekend. And man, you talking about a great time. We sit there and watch your trains and enjoy the main line of NS coming through, and you can hear the radio on. They have all the communications so you can listen to what's going on the line and talking to each other and telling stories about how someone burned up an engine on someone else's layout. So we have all those great stories.
And you have the pleasure of watching Big Mike Harkleroad give me a migraine headache too. love you, Big Mike. Love you, Big Mike.
So yeah, so we do that. And we're really, Brad, would you say that's maybe? I almost thought that was more of a highlight than the actual show, just being out there with all the Iron City guys
Especially
on the porch. Yeah.
since it was the first time we did it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. It was a great idea to do that. And the Station Inn, while we're talking about special places, absolutely the Altoona show is a special place. If you're an N-scaler, it's almost a must do if you possibly can. I know, we have some people listening to this from far off lands, but if you ever, for whatever reason, can get to it or in the area when it's going on, for N-scale, it's pretty tough to beat. But along with that, the Station Inn in Crescent, Pennsylvania, which is it's about probably 12 miles from Altoona, I think, roughly something like that. But it's an inn, kind of like a bed and breakfast, sort of right on the NS Norfolk Southern Pittsburgh line, the former PRR Middle Division main line. You're not going to find a busier stretch of railroad east of the Mississippi, I don't think, anymore. And it's just like Pat said, it's a great time to have your favorite beverage out there, chaw on some pizza, and just enjoy the fellowship of our Iron City group.
And Brad, don't forget those big family style breakfasts in the morning with the guys. That's always good
bet.
too. They set us up really nice there at the Station Inn.
You bet. Yeah, our buddy, like last year, good friend from Iron City East, the Central PA division of Iron City, Neil Moness, I guess at the last minute decided he wanted to come, so he couldn't get in at the station, and he stayed at a hotel somewhere down closer to Altoona. But he will be joining us there this year, so we're happy to have Neil with us. Neil's been kind of like my right hand man at getting stuff set up, when we have our Iron City East shows here. So I'm glad he's going to be able to join us and spend some time with us on the Station Inn porch too. So yeah, it's just a great time. And if you do make it to the show and don't have a reservation at the end, feel free to stop by and see us. We'll be there in the evening, and come by and say hi if you want to. Watch some trains and just tell a bunch of lies and drink some beverage of your choice and eat some pizza.
Okay, Brad, as we continue to go on with our report here, I'll go ahead and go to another event, and that is John O. has been telling everybody from the Iron City, if you want to come down and be part of a T-track that they're having at the Pennsylvania Museum, and I believe that's the 8th and 9th, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and so he's invited anybody that wants to come down from Iron City, either to come to watch or be a participant, but they'll be at the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum on the 8th and 9th.
You know what? Let me interrupt for a minute.
Yeah.
That's the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. A lot of people get that backwards.
Yeah, I got it back. Thank you, Richard. That's why you're the historian.
Yeah. And what the best part of that is, it is right across the street from Strasburg.
That's right. That looks pretty good, Richard. What do you think?
One of my favorite railroad museums.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And they're saying that that's part of the Keystone N-Track is the host for that. So those guys, they do a pretty good job. And so he's inviting us out to be part of that group. That's really nice.
I unfortunately can't make it that weekend. If I wasn't, I have plans that weekend. If I wasn't, I would be headed down there. I wish I could. Thank you, John, for inviting Iron City, and I hope some of our guys can go there and be a part of that, because it sounds like it's going to be a really cool event. They're going to set that T-track up like right in the big train hall where they have a lot of their restored equipment sitting under roof. The T-track's going to be right in there. So sounds like a great weekend. And like I said, I wish I could be part of it this year, but hopefully it'll continue in the future, and someday more of us will have a chance to get down and participate in that.
Okay, Brad, did you have another one that you were looking at here on the post?
I did have another one. Our buddy from down under, Marty Jenkins, had a pretty interesting week and ended up at the Pasadena Model Railroad Club. And he posted a track plan and about 80, looks like about 81, I guess, or no, almost 80 pictures, 79, or no, it would be. It's around 80 pictures.
It was that small of a layout.
Yeah, yeah. And it's kind of weird how stuff comes back to you. But when I saw pictures of that layout, I right away, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I remember back in the early 90s, that layout was on the cover of Model Railroader.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
And it was the issue either right before or right after one of my favorite and what I consider one of the most influential N-scale layouts of all time, the Reed Brothers Cumberland Valley system. I
Yes.
still have those two magazines. It was one, I can't remember which one was first, but it was one month it was one of those fantastic layouts, and then the next month it was the other. I'm thinking the Reed Brothers might have been first, and then it was the Pasadena Model Railroad Club. But just a super, super impressive HO layout that they have there, and it was neat that Marty was able to get to it, and we're grateful to him for providing a lot of pictures of that. He did some nice photography and was kind enough to share those. So that was the other big one I had, and we're going to be having Marty on here in the not too distant future, I believe, too. So that kind of
That's right. Yeah.
preview of things to come. But seriously, thanks, Marty, for sharing your travels here in the States with us. And looked like you got to do a lot of cool things, including attending the NMRA convention in Novi, Michigan. So on the outskirts of Detroit. So thank you for documenting all that, Marty. And it was great to see what you were doing. And I hope you had a great time while you were stateside.
Okay. I've got one more and I lost it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was scrolling and I had it up and I was going to talk to you guys about it. And his name is Adam. I can't find the last name. He just did it. He's new to our page and he was doing some silos. I don't know if you guys remember that. He just put them in.
I
And
do remember seeing that. Yeah.
yeah. And it was a really good start. And I wanted to tell Adam, keep it up, man. Keep putting those out there. We love to see new construction, especially I know Richard always comments on it. I know I comment on it. Brad does. We want to see you guys doing those layouts with the new construction. Don't be afraid to be posting on our page. We enjoy that. We think it's great. If you're asking for advice, we'll give it. If you're not asking advice, we'll give it. so,
You haven't lived.
Not
You haven't
anything
lived.
good.
You haven't lived until you've gotten one of our long answers to your short questions.
That's right. That's right.
You got to experience that. But yeah, don't be bashful about posting stuff. People on Iron City are not going to criticize anything you do. It's all encouragement, and we're just
So I found it. It's Adam Henry. Adam Henry.
Okay. Yep,
Sorry to interrupt you, Brad. I just want to make sure I got that. It looks good.
No,
Yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad you got his name. I remember seeing the post, and I remember the name Adam. But Adam Henry. Well, a fairly new guy, so welcome to Iron City, and please do keep the pictures and videos or whatever coming. We do enjoy watching people's progress, the progress of our members, seeing what they're doing in the hobby.
So his layout, Brad, is called the CSX Hanover subdivision in N-Scale. So, yep,
that's very
looking
cool.
good. Keep it going, man. And it looks like it's a pretty nice size layout. He's got plenty of pictures to share in the future.
Yeah, good.
As he adds on.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we got a little bit of time left. We were going to talk about our own layouts tonight a little bit. We haven't really done that on the podcast yet. And I'll probably let Brad go first while I kind of review what I'm going to say here. But
you reviewing your notes?
I'm reviewing my notes. I started taking notes. We started getting actual people to listen to the show. I said, well, we better take this seriously and actually take some notes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You had.
Yeah, it was until I tried to do two things at one time, a podcast and scroll on a page at the same time and lost my place. That's always great. But Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about your layout, what the name of it is, and what you're doing with it?
Okay, we'll do. My layout is right now it's about a 20 by 20 foot basement empire type layout, I guess you could say. It's built in an addition that my wife Missy and I built onto. Well, we didn't build it. We had somebody build an addition onto our house, and one of the first questions the guy asked was, do you want a crawl space or a full foundation? And of course, the answer that I quickly gave was full foundation. We don't want any crawl space. So that's where the layout is. It's a PRR North Penn. It is a prototype freelance version of the Pensy that survived into modern times. I run fairly modern layouts, or not layouts, locomotives and rolling stock. The layout's basically set in, I would say, the 2005 to maybe 2015 era, somewhere in there. And it also does not follow the real Pennsylvania main line. If you know anything about how the Pensy came to be, it it all started with Pennsylvania trying to catch up to New York and New York City and Baltimore. New York City had, of course, the New York Central, which had a nice water level route across the state of New York and into New York City. And same thing with the city of Baltimore, had the B&O, which basically followed the Potomac River up to Cumberland, and they were pushing their way through Pittsburgh. And the powerful merchants in Philadelphia were getting kind of worried that they were losing business to New York and even to Baltimore, which was kind of like an upstart. But so the Pennsylvania Railroad was chartered, and well, before it was chartered, they needed to figure out where it was going to run, because we in Pennsylvania are both blessed with a lot of beauty with our mountains, but when you're trying to build a railroad across the state, that presents a little bit of a difficulty, especially when you're fighting against two routes that have nice water level running. We don't have a whole lot of rivers that run east-west, especially across the middle of the state, because of the way our geology is. So they chartered a guy named Charles Schlatter, I believe his name was, and he surveyed 3 different routes through Pennsylvania, basically from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh. One of them was the middle route, which became the famed Pennsylvania Railroad Middle Division, which is today the Norfolk Southern Pittsburgh line. He also chartered a southern route, which, strangely enough, Pat, we have the North Penn, which is my layout. You have the West Penn. There was a South Penn Railroad chartered at one point, which the New York Central tried to take over. But that's what they attempted to do on that southern route that this guy surveyed. And basically right now, that route is pretty close to the Pennsylvania Turnpike. It basically, when that railroad didn't come to fruition, they decided to build a highway across there. The northern route is the one I focus on because I kind of changed history, and my Pennsylvania Railroad never used the middle route. They used the northern route, which conveniently enough came right up through where I live. So I kind of get to include a lot of the stuff that I grew up watching here in north central Pennsylvania. The northern route followed, the survey route became the Buffalo line from Harrisburg all the way up to Lock Haven. And then it came down what eventually became the Pennsylvania Railroad Bald Eagle branch. My main line doesn't follow that. It continues to follow the Buffalo line up to Driftwood, where it follows the route of what became known as the low-grade secondary out to a place called Red Bank. But that is my semi-fictionalized version of the Pennsylvania Railroad main line. I call it the North Penn line, or PRR North Penn. So that's the prototype freelance idea that I have. It's a 4-track main, just like the Pensy was, but it travels through a different area than what the real PRR main line traveled through. So that's what I do. And then I also have a connection with another freelance railroad, which I know you're going to talk about right now, so I won't steal your thunder.
Okay. Well, I'll let Richard go first, and I'll round us off. So, Richard, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your layout.
Okay, my layout is the Long Valley branch. It's purely fictional, but it's inspired by, as a kid growing up, the Penn Central, it was Pennsylvania Railroad, and when I was about 7 years old, it became Penn Central. So on this side of the river, the north side of the Ohio River, I grew up with Penn Central, then Conrail, and on the south side of the Ohio River was the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie. And by my grandparents' house that they lived west of Bridgeville was the Pittsburgh and West Virginia, which I was only like 3 years old whenever the N&W leased. So basically, I just knew the P&WV as the N&W Connellsville division. So those were the big mainline railroads that I saw. But living in this area, there were so many branch lines and industrial lines. And I kind of always was inspired by, because like Jones and Laughlin Steel across the river, that was a 7 mile long, fully integrated steel mill where they could take raw material, turn it into steel products. They had their own railroad, the Aliquippa and Southern, that actually interchanged with the mill and the P&LE. And then just upriver from there was the Montour. And they hauled coal from the various mines and, interchanged with the class ones. McDonald was Penn Central, Conrail. Here in Groveton was the P&LE. Then you had, like, even on Neville Island, you had the Pittsburgh and Ohio Valley, a short line. You had the PAM, Pittsburgh and McKees Rocks, a short line. You had the PCY, that was the Pittsburgh Chartiers and Youghiogheny. There were so many. And then, like, by my grandparents' house was the Bridgeville and McDonald, which the line never went past Cecil, but it was these little branch lines and little short lines that kind of inspired me. Here you had this railroad, this big, massive equipment that's tiptoeing through people's backyards. And that kind of got me inspired and into, branch line railroading. So that's what my layout kind of represents. It's no one place in particular, but it's the slower, 5-car train with a single locomotive that's going to serve a handful of customers. And basically, the way I wrote the history was it used to be a secondary line, but further down, the mines had all played out and the line wasn't needed, but the small town of Long Valley still had several industries that they needed to ship their product, ship and receive product on. So instead of being a secondary, it's now just a branch line that runs from a small interchange yard that connects with the main line to the small town of Long Valley. And I can't really pick a specific prototype or a specific era. So I kind of I can run anything from 1950 steam up to 1980 Conrail and anything in between. So this week it may be the P&WV may be operating the line. Next week it could be Southern operating the line. And I kind of incorporated, different rule books and different timetables to where the layout kind of fits in different parts of the country, depending on which railroad is operating the line at that time.
Okay, and I'll finish it out. But if you ever see Richard's layout, you could always tell, like you always wonder, okay, what is this week or what is this month? Because he's always got something new on there, and it's a great concept to have.
It causes a lot of suspense.
Yeah.
It's like, where is the Long Valley going to teleport to this week? It's
right. It's a brilliant idea. Yeah,
it is. It really is a neat idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I try to stay true with is even the vehicles on the highway. If it's a 1950s PRR branch with steam, I try to have 1950s vehicle on the highway. Because to me, I used to be an over-the-road truck driver, so being familiar with trucks and cars, to me that kind of ruins the illusion that if I see a 280 with two bay hoppers and here's a 1988 Buick in the background, it's like, that illusion just went away. It's no longer 1950.
Rumor has it that he's got a very shady character somewhere. Rail fanning on his layout too.
At the Long Valley Tower. Yeah, there's a mini Brad who's rail van, and he's become good friends with the tower operator, so he's usually kept up to date of what's running that day.
So we can conclude that the tower operator has very poor taste in friends, I guess, right? Not a very good judge of character, is he? No, that's kind of a hoot too, to see myself turning up on Richard's layout, and that all came from an experience up at Springfield. But we'll save that story for another day.
So hey, I'll wrap up with talking about my layout. It's a modular layout. Because of all my years in the military and moving, the layout's actually moved in its current state 5 times. So a lot of movement around. But the idea was it was a small regional railroad. It was called the West Penn. And then as we had the Conrail merger, I pretended Congress didn't allow Conrail to get it all, and the West Penn was able to take over some of the Pennsylvania line on the Panhandle, and that's what my layout's called, the Panhandle. But we also, Brad and I we schemed together and thought, how do you link two layouts together to make sure you can use the West Penn on his layout and the West Penn on my layout. So my West Penn goes from 1970 into the 80s, and Brad runs modern West Penn. So it's pretty cool to have two different layouts, two guys running the same freelance line, one modern and one historical. And the big joke is, though, the first ever painted West Penn wasn't on my layout. It was on Richard's.
Yeah.
Because Brad was surprising me with that. Brad was surprising me with that logo, and somehow it ended up on the on Richard's branch line. And I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, I was like I was like, wait a minute. How did Richard get the first locomotive? And
Funny
Brad,
thing is,
Brad
we did a similar trick the next year, and you fell for it again
I
too.
fell for it again.
There was something else that I painted up and took to. I might have been another loco. I can't even remember.
Yeah, I was like, how did? Yeah, the hop. Yeah, Richard, you guys got me good, man. You're good.
I liked with that first one that Richard posted at and said, "I hope yours turns out as good as mine did."
Yeah. So, I don't know too many people that what Brad and I did, to get back to the story here. We took when we go and lock in to a T-Track event or whatever, we call that our central division. And Brad and I have a theme basically that we're trying to stay with, that links his North Penn to my Panhandle. And so that becomes a division when we have that hooked together. And what's great is a lot of people from Iron City have now started to build their own engines or paint schemes with West Penn on it, and then they throw it on there on the central when we do a T-Track. So you got all these guys now with West Penn locomotives and rolling stock on the central division, we call it, which is our T-Track. And then when they take it off, they go home and just bring it back to their layout, which is pretty cool. But I still have Pittsburgh and Lake Erie, Chessie. Not too many people you see model Montour in N-Scale. One reason is for that is I live literally about 100, 200 yards from the old Montour Trail, Montour line, and now it's the Montour Trail. And so I model that. I have an NW. And then we have other layouts that have West Penn on them that do different time frames and different locations. But really, the layout basically goes from Weirton, West Virginia, to Pittsburgh, and I have two fictional towns, Alenaton, which is in West Virginia, and Raleigh-Burg, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. And then we have the line goes north to Erie, and then it goes west over to Buffalo, and then back on the Lehigh Valley line, which is no longer there. In the 70s and 80s, it was taken over by Conrail. But we say, hey, the West Penn got that, which is my dad's old HO layout that we're going to one day modify into N-Scale. He'll have that Lehigh Valley. We're calling that the Valley Division, and that he'll have that section. So it's a pretty neat concept. I know some really famous modelers that did that, and hopefully maybe one day.
Not us, but see,
not us.
We were talking about the Allegheny Midland earlier.
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah, and the VO
and Alan McClellan, the VNO did that.
Yeah.
I think it was Alan McClellan that actually came up with that idea of the virtual interchange, and start. I remember that, and then several members who lived in the Dayton area actually joined in on that as well.
Steve King and N-Scaler. So
yes.
I should not have failed to mention him. Thanks for filling in the gaps.
Yeah, and I always say I'm a professional beginner. Brad's the professional. So if anybody wants, we'll have our links on there. We call it the West Penn. It's our second page. If anybody would like to take a look at that, and it's just some of our work and some of our friends that have decided that they want to be part of that network. It's real hard to be part of the network, huh, Brad? It's a hard thing
Yeah.
to do, but
Yeah, our admissions process is quite stringent, so be prepared.
yeah. What you do is you email Brad and say, "Can I have some West Penn stickers?" And you're like, "Yep."
Yeah, yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. When we came up with this West Penn scheme, we started off with basically taking the color scheme from R.J. Corman, because Pat always commented about how he liked the R.J. Corman red and silver and white color scheme, and just taking and getting some West Penn decals made to put on, a Corman inspired paint job. We had to go through microscale to do that, and for custom art on their decals, it's a minimum order of 250 sheets. And we haven't probably gone through a fifth of those yet.
No.
So if anybody would like some West Penn decals, they are available for a very reasonable price.
Okay, Brad. Hey, guys, thanks for being on the show tonight. Richard, thanks for being a co-host. We
Thank you for
needed that.
having me.
We need that history guy on tonight. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Brad, once again, we got there, man. 1,000 downloads. We're still going. This is episode 7, The Historian. I thought that was a good title for tonight.
Absolutely.
And we're going to hopefully have pretty good lineup here in the next few weeks. Like I said, we're going to have an Altoona N-Scale Weekend preview show with some good special guests. We're going to have Andy Zimmerman and I believe Marty to go over some things with us on another show about NRMA weekend and how they enjoyed the conference. I think that they had. And I think, Brad, we got some things in the hopper about maybe some real railroading guys to come on and talk to us about some
all new. I don't know if we would call it a segment or an all new podcast within a podcast, I guess.
right.
We kind of alluded to that already in the last episode, but yeah, we're going to call it
The office car special.
The office car special. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have that. And then Brad's been digging into some research, hopefully maybe be able to get some guys on that run real railroads right now for some scenic railroads. So we don't want to give too much away, but we've got a lot planned.
It's in the planning phase, yeah.
It's in the planning phase.
We don't want to start dropping names yet because
No.
we still have to talk to this person. But I think people will enjoy it greatly if we're able to get this guy on. So hopefully that'll work out too. But thank you so much for everybody. I know I've said it before, but we can't overstate how much we appreciate you guys taking the time to download and listen to us on here. And as long as that continues to happen and people are hopefully enjoying this, that's what makes us have the energy to keep doing it. So thank you for the downloads. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the helpful suggestions we got. When we first started out, we knew next to nothing as far as how to get good sound and things like that. And so many people, Bob Freen, Peter Borchards, and others have reached out, giving us helpful suggestions about how to get sound levels balanced and eliminate background noise, splicing different segments together. That stuff has all been a big help too. So thanks to everybody who has listened or participated in any way. We appreciate it more than you know.
And Brad, if they want to get a hold of you, me, or Richard, they can DM us or they can talk to us on Iron City N-Scale Facebook page. We're always answering questions on that page. And if they want to, they can always post on that page. Once you become a member, you're allowed to post. You're allowed to put videos on there. We have no restrictions on folks putting their railroad on there or putting ideas, or if you saw an article from a magazine and you want to cut, paste that, put it on there and show us what's going on.
And
we're happy to see you.
That's model pictures or the real railroad pictures. I just recently concluded a trip out to Lincoln, Nebraska, where I was on the BNSF main line, and then I even ventured up to Grand Island where the BNSF crosses over on a flyover over the UP. So yeah, we like real railroad pictures, videos. We like model pictures, questions, any of that. And I know some of our listeners enjoy it when we bring up stuff that they posted, and that's that's where we get the material from for that opening segment we do on the Roundhouse Report. We talk about what's going on the Iron City Facebook page. So keep those posts coming, and again, thank you for your support.
So Brad, they can download us at Apple Podcasts. They got YouTube, Podbeam, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, and Boomplay. So we're on all those. So please download and listen. Tell your friends about us, right? The more the merrier. And Brad, I'll let you close out the show. Like I said, great show tonight. Richard, again, thanks for coming on. And Brad, I'll let you have the final word.
Yeah, I echo what you said. Thanks, Richard. I'm a history buff like Richard is too, and I think that's probably why Richard and I have become such good friends, because that's one of the things we do enjoy talking about. And I tend to be PRR centered. I've read a lot about that, but Richard has, he especially for those railroads in the Pittsburgh area, just an encyclopedia. So it's always good to hear from you, Richard, and we appreciate a lot that you came on here with us tonight. And I'm sure our listeners will enjoy hearing from you. And if you have questions about, as Pat mentioned, if you have questions about anything railroad related in Pittsburgh, feel free to make a post, DM Richard, or make a post and tag him, and he'll be more than happy to give you one of his famous long answers to short questions. So, so thanks, Richard, for being our first additional co-host to the two clowns who are usually co-hosts on here. Kind of
Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right, rail fans, that's all the steam we've got for this edition of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Until next time, keep those gauges green, your couplers connected, and may your layouts always run smoothly. Happy railroading.